Welcome to this deep dive, listener. Today we're diving into the world of Bob Camblin,
Yes.
but we're going way beyond just, his art, the paint on the canvas.
Right.
It's about the mind of this guy, this artist, thinker. I mean, he's like weaving mysteries.
Yeah.
And, we've got a ton of sources, like we've got his actual writings.
Oh, wow.
We've got like biographical sketches of Camblin.
Okay.
We've got critiques of his art.
Uh-huh.
And it all points to a man who, was living life on his own terms.
Oh, yeah.
Really challenging how we even see art.
He really did. And what I think is so fascinating about Camblin is that he was this like walking paradox, Like
Yeah.
you read his words and he's urging you to like have carefree idleness.
Right.
But at the same time, he was so clearly driven. I mean, this is a Fulbright scholar.
Yeah.
But he chose to like ditch that whole academic world and become a nomad instead.
It's almost like he was rejecting like the very system that said, hey, you're brilliant.
Totally. And then that same kind of rebellious spirit, like it's right there in his art, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you see it in all those like layers in his pieces.
Yes.
They're contradictory. They're inviting so many interpretations. It's wild.
Absolutely. And a perfect example of that is my silence is, right? Like if you just go off the YouTube video transcript, you get this sense of it being, well, way more than just a self-portrait.
Right.
It swirls and textures, almost like he's painting a soundscape with the thing. But then you look at the pasted text source, and that's this whole analytical breakdown,
Okay.
comparing it to Redon, to Giacometti,
Rounding it in the history.
Exactly. It's like he's giving us these two totally separate ways to experience the same piece of art. You have that like immediate emotional impact.
Yeah.
And then you've got this deeper intellectual dive that you can do.
It's pretty cool, honestly.
It's so Camblin. And remember, he was all about that idea that in explaining something, it was killed.
Right. He's
know?
quoting the simplest there. Exactly. But the thing is, he's embedding hidden imagery, sometimes even codes, right, in his artwork. Like he's turning the act of just looking at art into a treasure hunt.
Wow.
I mean, there are actual data problems in some of his drawings.
Oh.
Some you can solve, some are dead ends. I mean, it's almost as if he's like daring us to crack the code.
That's so interesting because like it seems kind of at odds with how much he disliked over-explaining art, right? Is there like some irony there? Is Camblin like messing with us a little bit?
It's a great question. It might be less about giving us the answers on a silver platter and more about just getting the viewer engaged,
Yeah.
like making them an active part of uncovering the meaning, because he wanted to like totally disrupt the way we usually experience art. Instead of just like standing there and passively observing, he wanted these immersive exhibitions where artists would actually work inside the gallery, blurring that line between like creation and consumption,
So you wouldn't just see a Camblin piece, you'd like witness its creation.
Exactly.
Almost like performance art.
Yeah.
That completely flips the script on the art world, doesn't it?
It does. And speaking of flipping the script, let's go back to the beginning a bit.
Okay.
Because it seems like Camblin's Oklahoma roots, where he grew up, they really impacted his work.
Yeah.
I mean, his childhood in Ponca City, it sounds almost surreal when you read about it.
Kind of so.
A Marland estate,
Uh-huh.
the Wizard of Oz playing at the Poncan Theater.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the perfect setting for magical realism.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that Pioneer Woman statue, it's so specific to that place and time.
Yes.
But it pops up again and again in his work.
Right, because it represents that resilience, that pioneering spirit,
Yeah.
but also like this really deep connection he had to where he came from.
Yeah.
And then you have this, this fascinating juxtaposition. Like he recreates Botticelli's Birth of Venice,
The classic.
but he uses KPFT radio as the subject, a
Whoa.
local Houston tie-in.
That's wild. It's like high art, but with this local flavor.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying that beauty and meaning, they could be found anywhere.
Right.
From, these Renaissance masterpieces to like the radio waves of his adopted city.
Absolutely. And that, blending these totally different elements, high and low culture, ancient and modern, that's a big theme in his art.
Which honestly makes his evolution as an artist even more fascinating to kind of trace, because it wasn't a straight line, was it?
Not at all.
From the early social protest art to like his fascination with Etruscan figures.
Yeah,
And then that trip to Italy, that was like pivotal.
it really was.
Each phase seems to build on the last one, but then it takes the sharp turn.
It's more like a spiral, I think.
Oh, okay.
Where he keeps revisiting certain themes, and techniques, but he always brings in these new influences. Like after Italy, it was less about what he was depicting, the outside world, and more about evoking these inner states of mind. He developed this style he called mouches volantes.
Like those little floaters you see in your vision sometimes.
Exactly.
Did he actually paint those?
Yeah, he would use all these dots and dashes to make these optical illusions.
Whoa.
Really playing with perception, making you question what's even real on the canvas.
Yeah.
I mean, it was inspired by Dadaism and surrealism, but it was all filtered through Camblin's, unique vision.
So he's taking these established movements and just putting his own spin on them.
Exactly.
But he also seems to have, rejected the traditional art market, right?
He did.
I mean, even refusing payment sometimes.
Yep.
He called it, the art game.
Yeah.
And he thought it was just, problematic.
He really did. And, he had that disdain for, over-explaining art. He compared art historians to people who, help children find Easter eggs. Just adds another layer of complexity to his whole view on things.
It's that playful defiance again, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's giving us the pieces, but letting us put the puzzle together ourselves.
Totally.
It makes me think about the title of this whole collection, Incomplete Works.
Yes.
So it's he's acknowledging, maybe even embracing, that art is inherently incomplete.
Right.
Maybe life itself is too.
That's a brilliant observation. I mean, even the word incomplete, that's a puzzle in itself.
Yeah.
It suggests that Camblin's work, and maybe even his life story, it's intentionally unfinished.
So we're left with this tantalizing sense of mystery.
Yes.
And a desire to just find out more.
Exactly. That's the beauty of Camblin.
Yeah.
His art is like this journey. It's not about reaching the destination. And each new discovery, each new insight, it just deepens the whole mystery.
Wow. Yeah, it really does feel like he's leaving these little breadcrumbs. Inviting us to follow this trail. But he's never going to reveal the full picture.
Right.
And this whole sense of mystery, it's not just a surface level thing, is it?
No, not at all.
It's connected to something way deeper in his work.
Absolutely. Camblin was so fascinated with Zen philosophy and the I Ching, and it really comes through in his art. It's not just about how it looks. It's about using visuals, a visual language to get at these huge questions about, identity and perception and what even is reality.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned before that his pieces are kind of like visual koans. What did you mean by that? I'm curious how he actually used art to get at these super complex philosophical ideas.
Well, think about the I Ching, right? You've got all these seemingly random events, but they're actually revealing these hidden patterns.
Yeah.
And meaning. And Camblin's art, it works in a similar way. It's challenging you to look past the surface.
Okay.
To think about how everything's connected and to find meaning in the things that you wouldn't expect.
So he's not giving us the answers outright.
Nope.
He's making us ask the questions.
Exactly.
And explore and come up with our own interpretations.
Yeah, yeah.
And that ties into his emphasis on intuition and direct experience.
Oh, absolutely.
He wanted us to to feel his art, not just think about it.
Precisely. He saw art as a way to awaken the senses, to shake us up, and get us to see the world in a totally new way. And he wasn't afraid to use humor to do it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Some of his quotes there, they're so witty.
They are.
Almost like he's doing stand-up.
Yeah, yeah.
He had this way of, poking fun at the art world, at himself even. It's kind of refreshing.
It really is. Camblin took his art seriously, but he never took himself too seriously.
Right.
He got the absurdity of life, and he let that into his work.
Yeah.
It's like he's giving us a little wink, saying, don't overthink it. Just enjoy the ride.
Which, makes me think about his nomadic period. He really, worked the walk, didn't he?
He did.
Leaving that stable life in academia to just wander the world.
Yeah.
Kind of those lonely figures that he draws.
Oh, totally. He embodied that spirit of exploration and adventure. And it wasn't just about finding new places to paint.
Right.
It was about immersing himself in different cultures, experiencing life in all its, its raw beauty, but also all the complexity.
He traveled all over, didn't he?
Yeah.
Italy, France, Ireland, Mexico, even the South Pacific.
Yeah, he did. It's no wonder his work is so full of these, like, unexpected juxtapositions.
Hmm.
You can see all those journeys woven into his art, the colors he uses, the subjects he chooses, his fascination with symbols, and archetypes, the kind that go beyond any one culture.
It's like he's making a visual language that speaks to something universal.
Yeah.
Like something inside all of us.
Yes.
He's pulling inspiration from this, like, global well.
Right. And that universality, that's why his work is still so relevant today. It's not tied to a particular time or place.
Right.
It speaks to the human condition, to that, like, eternal search for meaning and for connection.
I bet that's why his pieces are so, like, sought after by collectors, right?
I think so.
They're not just buying, like, a pretty painting.
Right.
They're buying a piece of the artist's soul, a fragment of his journey.
And that journey keeps going, even though he's gone. His work is so open to interpretation, so full of these hidden layers and little nuances, that it changes with every new viewer,
Yeah.
each new encounter.
It's like he's inviting us to be, like, co-creators. Almost.
Yeah.
To bring our own experiences to it, our own perspectives,
Yes.
to keep the conversation going.
Exactly. And that's the mark of a truly great artist. Someone whose work, like, transcends limitations.
Yeah.
Inviting us to go on our own journeys of discovery.
It makes me think about that word yes, the one that keeps showing up in his drawings.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's Camblin's way of, like, saying yes to life.
Oh.
Yes to the unknown. Yeah. Yes to all the different ways we can interpret his work.
That's a beautiful thought. And it really captures Camblin's spirit,
Yeah.
Embracing the unknown, finding the joy in the journey, and always searching and exploring and evolving.
It's funny. We've, like, covered so much.
We have.
But I still feel like we're barely scratching the surface of Camblin's world.
I know, right? That's the beauty of it. His work is like this gift that keeps on giving. A puzzle that, like, never fully comes together, a mystery that keeps calling us in.
And it makes you wonder what else is out there, hidden in some private collection, or maybe even just, like, misfiled in a museum somewhere. I mean, we're talking thousands of pieces, and we've only seen, like, a tiny percentage.
And it's like, we've got this treasure map, but we're just starting to figure out the clues.
Yeah.
Every new bit of information adds to the whole Camblin puzzle, but it also, like, makes the mystery even deeper.
So what does it all mean for us? What can we take away from, like, this whole deep dive into Bob Camblin's world?
Maybe the answer is it's right there in his own words. When he talked about carefree idleness,
Yeah.
stepping off the train of thought, finding the power that is no power. It sounds kind of contradictory, but maybe there's a really profound truth in there somewhere.
It's like he's encouraging us to look at his art, and maybe even life itself, with a sense of playfulness.
Yeah.
And curiosity, to let go of needing to know everything, for sure.
Right.
To be okay with ambiguity.
Camblin wasn't about giving us easy answers. He wanted us to think, to challenge what we think we know, to really wake up our senses. He thought art could connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
And maybe that's the real gift of doing this deep dive. It's this spark of curiosity, this desire to see the world just for a little bit through Camblin's eyes, to find, like, the magic in the everyday stuff.
That's a great way to put it. I think exploring Camblin's art, it reminds us that the journey, that's the real destination. It's about, embracing that process of discovery,
Yeah.
finding meaning in the unexpected, and celebrating how beautiful and mysterious life is, in all its different forms.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, listener. We hope you'll keep exploring Bob Camblin's world. And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to find the next clue in this mystery that keeps going and going.